Say tricks.
Bungie released their Dev Insights today to give us a preview on Season 22's abilities and armor changes. I already read through this. I feel like there's a lot of good stuff in here. Some stuff that some people might be a little bit upset about, but overall, I'm pretty excited about these changes. Alright, so let's go over it. Bungie said that their goal here was to bolster underused exotics. They looked at exotics that weren't being used in any game mode or hardly being used and buffed those. They also revisited some of the exotics that they changed in the first wave and gave those another boost. We'll start with Hunters. Knucklehead Radar. The functionality of the Foe Tracer exotic helmet has been completely removed from that exotic and added to Knucklehead Radar on top of its existing benefits. Foe Tracer. We took some cues from the popular monochromatic Maestro artifact perk for this one. When you deal damage with one of your abilities, you gain a damage bonus with weapons that have damage types matching your subclass damage type. Additionally, when you defeat an enemy you've damaged with one of your abilities, either with another ability or with a weapon with a damage type matching your subclass type, you will spawn one of the collectible objects associated with your subclass, such as ionic traces or fire sprites. So it's pretty cool that it'll give us a damage boost here, but it kind of feels like it needs a name change. But getting some ability regen on top of a damage boost is nice. Oh, this one I'm excited for. Lucky Raspberry. This exotic was a little too unreliable in its current form, so we've taken a crack at streamlining its energy gains while leaving some of its benefits intact. The exotic still expands the chaining capabilities of arc bolt grenades, but now instead of basing the grenade energy gains on those chains, each time you damage an enemy with the lightning strikes from the jolted condition, as well as each time you pick up an ionic trace, you gain additional grenade energy. We've also given this grenade the intrinsic ability to stun overload champions. Now you don't have to jolt them and then trigger the jolt lightning strikes just to stun them, making these grenades a more reliable tool against overload champions. I'm super excited for this one, y'all. Lucky Raspberry is my favorite hunter exotic. If you haven't seen my build video for it, I'll put it up at the top. But getting a buff for this is awesome. I even mentioned how Jolt kind of interferes with the chains in the current version and can actually stop you from getting your grenade back. But now it's going to help it? Hell yeah. And lastly for hunters, we got Renewal Grasps. They said that they're undoing the previous nerf to Duskfield grenade cooldowns when using this exotic. I know a lot of people are going to be happy about that one. Alright, for Titans. Icefall Mantle, Doomfang Pauldrons, Path of the Burning Steps, and Eternal Warrior. In Season 21, we included some changes to Eternal Warrior and the Path of Burning Steps. We added an escalating damage bonus to arc and solar weapons respectively when you get kills with those damage types. We liked that this gave players another way to get surge-like bonuses, but the Eternal Warrior seemed to have the most reliable way to get up to the tier 4 damage bonus. We've made some further changes to these perks to make them a little more reliable while also expanding the functionality to 2 other exotics. So for Icefall Mantle, it grants an escalating bonus to stasis weapon damage when getting rapid stasis kills. When you activate your class ability, you immediately gain the highest tier bonus. That means when you activate your Overshield from Icefall Mantle, you also get the tier 4 damage boost. Doomfang Pauldrons grants an escalating bonus to void weapon damage when getting void rapid kills. When you get a void melee kill, you immediately gain the highest tier bonus. With Path of the Burning Steps, if you get a solar grenade kill, it'll now grant the highest tier. And then Eternal Warrior, since the exotic only grants its highest tier damage bonus automatically when your super ends, which is a rarer occurrence, the duration of the arc weapon damage bonus when your Fist of Havoc super ends has been extended to 30 seconds, up from 10 seconds in Season 21. ACD-0 Feedback Fence. This exotic got a complete mechanical rework and now ties into the armor charge system, increasing its versatility and making it more useful in scenarios where you might not be taking a lot of melee damage. With the new perk, which completely replaces the old one, when melee hits give you an armor charge, you take reduced melee damage while you have that armor charge. Taking melee damage causes you to emit a burst of damaging arc energy that jolts targets, consuming your armor charge and dealing more damage based on the number of stacks consumed. Note that the damage dealt by the burst of arc energy should be comparable to its current damage for 0 to 3 stacks of armor charge. I kind of wonder if pairing that with Jolt is going to make it nasty like it used to be though. Hollowfire Heart. This exotic often stands in the shadow of the more ubiquitous Heart of Inmost Light. To remedy that, we've removed its base energy to solar abilities and replaced it with a perk that will let you build more into sunspots. We think you'll be seeing many more sunspots on the battlefield as a result. As for the perk that greatly increases your ability regen rate when your super is fully charged, we left that as is. I mean, that might actually be pretty dope. I have a build for that I enjoy a lot. Kind of look forward to that one. Now, Warlocks. Astrocyte Verse. We've added 2 more pieces of functionality to this exotic. Enemies near you when you blink become volatile. Additionally, when you're using the Nova Warp Super, the Dark Blink ability no longer consumes super energy. Geomag Stabilizers. While we've often heard calls to restore the perk that lets you top off your super energy by sprinting, the legacy of that incentive still creates some pretty silly play patterns. Instead, we wanted to give players a way to get more super energy no matter how charged their super is. Now, picking up an Ionic Trace while wearing this exotic will grant Guardians additional super energy. Ooh, Geomag Stabilizers back on the menu. Wings of Sacred Dawn. Leaning into the orbital weapons platform fantasy, we wanted to help players have a way to stay aloft longer, especially in target-rich PvE environments. Typically, reloading was the main cause for a float to end. This exotic now automatically reloads solar weapons, including the weapon you are holding, from reserves each time you get a kill while aiming down sights. And then Winter's Guile. Due to the nature of the Stasis Warlock's melee ability, this exotic was previously a disappointing choice for that subclass. We've added a new perk to this one, specifically for when you are playing your Stasis subclass. Now, combatants encased by your Penumbral Blast melee will automatically shatter after a short delay. I don't know if that one's going to really bring that up to par. The abilities preview section is the section I think is probably going to make some people upset, at least in some parts, but I'm excited with most of the changes coming. Maybe not this first one that we'll talk about though. So they say, we've been experimenting for a while with opt-in ways to play around barricades, including anti-barrier rounds via the artifact or exotic weapons, origin traits, subclass buffs, tuning the damage special weapons deal to barricades, and more. These are all meant to increase an attacker's ability to remove barricades from the equation. However, it's clear that in the heat of the moment, these kinds of out-of-combat decisions aren't really coming into play. So, we're making some base level changes across different barricade abilities, primarily targeting the strength of Towering Barricade. In Season 22, Towering Barricade's base cooldown will be increasing significantly, and all barricade objects will receive a reduction in their maximum health pool. I'm actually not excited about this one. I think that this has already been getting nerfed too much, but what do I know? I don't play PvP as much as some people do, so maybe it is a big deal. But Towering Barricade, the base cooldown is going to be increased from 48 to 70 seconds. Then for all barricades, the maximum health is being reduced from 600 to 500, but the damage resistance versus PvE combatants is being increased to compensate. At this time, we're not extending the Towering Barricade cooldown change to the Bastion variant, which already has a base cooldown time of 100 seconds. However, the maximum health reduction does apply, bringing its effective HP against players from 500 to 417. That's because players deal an additional 20% damage to Bastion barricades. Next up, Striker Titan. It probably won't surprise you to hear that Striker has been significantly overperforming in high-level PvP activities like Trials of Osiris. While we believe that a small portion of this is due to a strong focus on Arc and the seasonal artifact, we also believe that their base kit has a few elements that are too strong. We've made recent changes to both of these atoms, but neither their prevalence nor performance has meaningfully shifted. So we're taking another swing at Thunder Crash and Knockout. I'm not gonna lie, every time I do play PvP, I'm usually a Arc Titan, so I kind of understand this, but it does suck. Theoretically, Thunder Crash is a one-off super, but in practice, its kill potential is closer to that of a roaming super, so we're updating its base cooldown to reflect that. As damage dealt and received is the primary factor in super regeneration rates, particularly in PvE, we believe this change will be felt most strongly in low player count PvP like Trials and Competitive, without being too disruptive for our PvE strikers. Alright, so Thunder Crash's cooldown is being increased from 500 seconds to 556 seconds, matching the majority of roaming supers. You know, the more that I think about this, I don't know if I really like this one, because the way I've usually used Thunder Crash is an answer to bubbles and wells that people hold on to slam on the capture point at the end of a round to break a tiebreaker. And without something like Thunder Crash, it might be a little bit more annoying to deal with that. Also, side note, whenever I play competitive, I don't see nearly enough people shooting the ball above the sword on a well. Special weapons can take it down pretty quick. If you're rocking Jotun, you can fire a shot or two at it and that's it. It's done. While we want Striker to live up to its fantasy of being a close quarters powerhouse, Knockout is currently too forgiving in letting players clean up engagements with melee attacks early in a duel, especially when combined with other melee enhancing items. For Season 22, we're reducing its damage bonus against players. They're going to reduce it from 50 to 30. Alright, this section that we're getting to now is actually like what I was kind of referring to when I was excited about some of the changes coming to this. But I am still aware that there's probably going to be plenty of people that don't like some of these changes. So here we go. It's changes to Strand, specifically Suspend. We played with a variety of suspend times during Strand development and landed on a long duration to differentiate Suspend from Stasis Freeze, offsetting the lack of a Shatter equivalent with additional disable time. Having seen the way it's played out in the live game, we don't believe this is the right place for Suspend to live. We want to shift both its uptime and potency for a few reasons. Suspend is currently a skeleton key that solves combat problems against all combatant types. Yeah, man, like, it's a one-stop shop for dealing with champions. Like, all you gotta do is suspend them. Barriers, now they can't put the barrier down. Overloads, unstops, yep. Its current duration heavily steps on the toes of Stasis Freeze, which we want to keep as the highest potency disable in the sandbox. That's another reason why I'm happy about these changes. I love playing Stasis. I haven't been playing it as much recently because of Lightfall and all that, but to have Stasis back in the playing field is going to be great. The uptime of suspending atoms doesn't allow for meaningful player decision making when choosing when and where to place a hard disable. To address these problems, we're making a suite of changes across both Suspend and its supporting atoms to better carve out a healthier role for Suspend in the sandbox. The base duration of Suspend is being reduced significantly. We further reduced it against champion combatants to ensure that they remain a core focus in combat, a problem for the fire team's survivability that needs to be addressed with urgency. We're also reducing the energy regeneration granted by Thread of Mind and Thread of Generation. We don't believe the ability uptime these two fragments grant to suspending atoms is healthy for the sandbox. Honestly, when I saw those fragments when Lightfall first dropped, I was kind of surprised they were even in there, so I'm not really surprised to see them reeling that one back. We reduced base suspend duration versus non-champion PvE combatants from 8 seconds to 5 seconds. Thread of Continuity now extends this duration to 7 seconds, down from 12. We reduced base suspend duration versus champions from 8 seconds to 3 seconds, or 4 seconds with Thread of Continuity. And we increased snap damage dealt to suspend boss combatants by 67%. For Thread of Mind, we reduced class energy gain based on the tier of the defeated target. So minors will now do 10% instead of 15%, majors will do 15 instead of 25%, bosses, champions, and mini-bosses will now grant 25% instead of 50%. And then Thread of Generation, they've reduced the overall energy gain per damage event against PvE enemies by about 20%. And they rebalanced the energy gain multiplier across primary weapon archetypes. We wanted to bring the energy gains for dealing damage with precision weapons and fully automatic weapons closer together. Overall, we've reduced the efficiency of fully automatic primary weapons and increased the efficiency of precision primary weapons to compensate. In combination with these changes to Suspend, we want to shift some of that potency to other Strand atoms. to allow for more diverse options for Strand users. In particular, we're increasing the power of Threadlings and Sever in PvE and increasing the availability of Tangles across all modes. Dude, all three of those things are going to benefit my Warlock build. That build might be even juicier next season, even without the seasonal artifacts. I don't know, we'll see. I'll probably do an update video on it. So, Threadlings. We are increasing Threadling damage versus PvE combatants by 30%. Tangles. Reduce Tangle creation cooldown time from 15 seconds to 12 seconds. And then Sever. PvE combatants affected by Sever now have their outgoing damage reduced by 40% instead of 30%. Dude, like all three of those are good changes, man. People have been asking for the reduced Tangle cooldown the whole time. 12 seconds probably isn't as much as big as people want, but it's better than nothing. And then 30% extra damage now from Threadlings. Damn. The Silk Strike super is a bit unforgiving in the live game, particularly in PvP. So we've made some small changes to improve its usability. We've increased strike damage resistance from 40% to 45%, reduced suppression time between Silk Strike super air attacks, and reduced vertical lift provided by the Silk Strike heavy air attack to reduce instances of missing the primary target. They're also making some changes to Threaded Spectre to make it more appealing in PvE. They're increasing the Threaded Spectre lifetime from 10 to 12 seconds, increasing its health against PvE combatants. Threaded Spectre now takes longer to detect nearby PvE combatants at the beginning of its lifetime, and PvE combatants now more consistently focus on Threaded Spectre instead of the Hunter. Allied players will no longer have reticle magnetism toward Threaded Spectre. Alright, for Broodweaver, the Wanderer aspect is strong when thrown, but it was somewhat hard to use in more difficult situations, making it dangerous to leave the safety of cover to grab a Tangle. While this aspect is equipped, destroying a Tangle with your weapon will now weave the Wanderer, which surges upward and detonates, suspending any nearby enemies. We've also increased the Wanderer's detonation range and damage. So now with the Wanderer, destroying a Tangle now creates a delayed suspending detonation. We've increased suspend detonation radius from 6 to 7 meters against PvE combatants, and increased thrown Wanderer Tangle detonation damage to match standard Tangle detonations. Grapple melees will now take priority while active, regardless of whether or not a target is within range. And then here's some changes that they're making to the Strand fragments. Thread of Propagation will now grant 10 strength. Thread of Continuity will no longer grant 10 strength. Thread of Wisdom will no longer require a precision kill to activate. Thread of Isolation reduced the number of precision hits required to activate by an average of about 30%, which varies by weapon archetype. And then Thread of Rebirth, the number of created Threadlings now increases based on the tier of the defeated target. Minor combatants are 1, elites or players 2, bosses, champions, or mini-bosses are 3. All of this is coming in Season 22 and some more changes too. Tune in on launch day for a full list of changes and bug fixes, including a fix for Celestial Fire Scorch not activating melee perks like Sun Bracers. While Season 22 is getting locked in, we're working on a suite of Season 23 changes as well. We'll have more to share about Season 23 at a later date, but in the meantime, we'll be keeping an eye out for your feedback on all of these Season 22 changes. So like I said, I think that some of these changes with Strand are pretty good. I like that we're moving away from Suspend being so dominant. I enjoy Suspend as much as the next guy, but let's be honest, it's kind of overpowered. When you have something that can take out anything all the time like that, like Stasis basically vanished with Suspend around. So it'll be nice to see Stasis around more often. But until next time, have a good one, y'all.